So I'll give you a couple other low-tech security techniques that don't work as good as they used to, but they're still valid. The problem is today everybody and their brother has a four-wheeler, and you'd be amazed where you can get with four-wheelers. I mean, it's unbelievable where you can get with a four-wheeler. And when people are stealing, they like to have a vehicle because it makes them be able to move quicker and carry more. Because thieves want money. That's the main thing they want. There's the pervert that wants to rape somebody or something, but when they're talking about a remote property being broke in, there's no one there. They either want to break in and steal shit, break in and destroy shit, or break in, steal, and destroy shit, or maybe break in and live there for a couple weeks. And a lot of times that involves a vehicle. So I had a friend named Petey when I was a kid. He was an older man. He was a Korean War vet. Good friend of my family. He used to take me hunting. And he had a hunting camp. And there was this road that went back to where his hunting camp was. And the road was all on his property. And about halfway between his road and his camp, there was a big, thick stand of trees that was almost impossible to get through with a vehicle. Again, I think maybe with a four-wheeler or dirt bike, you could get through it. But they just weren't as common back then. Dirt bikes were, but not out in a couple of places like this. Now, like I said, everybody got a four-wheeler. And there were two huge ruts in the road. I'm talking about straight down. And if you would have drove a truck in there, you would have not gotten it out without another truck to pull you out or a winch. You'd have been mired up and stuck. And when we got there, he'd go off in the woods a little bit. He came back with two huge oak planks, about that wide, about that thick, like they used to build houses out of in the 1800s. And he'd gotten it from a dump, and that's what it was, from a torn down house. And we dragged those oak planks out, and he'd lay them, and it was a bridge, and we'd drive across those ruts. They weren't that wide, but they were wide enough to go down into and not get out of. And then when we would just leave them there while we were there, and when we left, we'd go hide them back in the woods again. That type of thinking is one way to make your property less accessible, and it's a little bit more deterrent than just a gate. Because as a kid, we did stupid shit. We used to run around in the coal mines, coal lands up in Pennsylvania, and we'd find these gates, and the gate had two bars going together like that with a padlock on it. And we had a Jeep with a concrete-filled bumper, and we'd just pull up to it and just boom, boom, and the lock would pop off, and then we would open the gate, drive through it, and then dummy lock it, right? Or put our own lock on it with our own key so that no one would notice we were up there. So, I mean, gates are easily, I'm sure the statute of limitations is up on those things because I was about 15, 16 years old when we used to do that. But I'm just kind of pointing out that the gates don't give you the security that you might think they do. And these other types of ways of thinking. Be careful with booby traps and shit like that because you end up sued or in prison. But anything you can do to make the property more difficult to access and make people think about it before they do it. And this is why I actually love properties that are in small communities with neighbors around that you can get along with, that know you're a remote owner of the property and keep an eye on it for you. Have their numbers, they have your numbers, emails, stay in touch with them, send them stuff. You know, if you got a guy that likes to drink, get him a beer of the month club. And every month when that beer shows up, oh, that's Jack from down there in Texas. He's a good guy. Yeah. You know, I'll take a look at his house today. It reinforces that. If they have kids and you have basic maintenance needs to be done, like mowing your lawn or weed eating, pay their kids to do it. So you form an attachment to those people around you. That's the best security you'll ever get. Line of sight neighbors that give a shit and just see you as someone with a vacation home. And if you add to that seasonal rentals for an income source, you get a lot more security than just a remote cabin up in the woods. Though, if that's what you want, go do it. Just understand the risk associated with that. Kind of wrapping things up here in the end. This isn't what I want. It's what you want. What do you want for your life? In all the things we've talked about today. If things go wrong, where do you want to be able to go? A lot of people, the way to do this is from the mentality of, when I retire, I want to leave this rat race, move a few hours away and have this place up in the woods and go fishing and hunting every day for the rest of my life. Okay, then build it for that. For some people, it's, you know what, I'm in my 40s and 50s or 30s, whatever it is, and I've got young kids, and I don't want them to think this is all there is. And I want to be able to, a couple weekends a month, just put everything down, pack everybody up, and go somewhere and teach them about life. And I want this to be a lingering, long-term legacy investment that will be inherited by my children. And my not only will I play with my grandchildren there, but my kids' grandchildren will go there with them. Then do that. Some of you just say, you know what, I just want a place if shit goes wrong to go to, but I want it to be nice and comfortable. And I understand now I want an exit strategy in case it doesn't work out. Then do that. but do it for yourself. I have 12 tenets of modern survival philosophy. The 12th one is the most important, and that is what you do matters. And I cannot and will not try to tell you how to live your life and what to do. Because the minute you get to the point in my plan where it doesn't work for you, you'll just go off and do something totally different. So we think here with modern survivalism more about how to think than what to think. You get the methodology I gave you down, and then you go figure out what works for you. Whether it's a bug out location, your basic preparedness, starting a business, it doesn't matter. Use the methodology that I've given you, the way of thinking, not what to think, but how to think. Keep the goals in mind. And remember, we put the bug out location up on the shelf, but it is one of them. Make sure that it does work. If I did have to come here, would it work? Is it reasonable to get here in a crisis or a disaster? If it just was because I lost my job and I was like kind of falling back economically, is there opportunities for enough income to at least support this secondary lifestyle? If it's going to be a retirement property, well, then how remote do you really want it to be? As we get older, we need medical assistance and medical care. Do you want to be an hour away from the nearest hospital? You got to think about these things and how they fit into your life and what you really want. And if you want to live in the middle of the wilderness, 2 hours away from anybody else, where you have to fly in with a remote bush plane, then God bless you and go do it. But make sure that's what you really want. And if you're married, it probably ain't going to work. I'm just saying. And understand, real estate does build wealth. And building wealth is prepping. I think there's so many people out there, they're so addicted to beans, bullets, and Band-Aids. They don't understand that's 3 arrows. Beans, bullets, and Band-Aids are 3 arrows in a quiver that's huge, that needs hundreds of arrows in it. And the way we acquire most of those arrows is through money. And the more we build our wealth, the more resilient we are in a world where economics is one of our biggest concerns. And if we buy property with serviceable debt, pay it off as quickly as possible, or if you're worried about hyperinflation, well, great. If I had 5 properties that I had mortgaged and we got into a hyperinflationary state where money just started flowing like water, I'd get a bunch of that money and pay off my property. Don't plan on that. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work that way. But I'm not going to not buy a property because we might have inflation. Because inflation actually increases the value of property. And in fact, property has routinely outpaced inflation. It's a wealth building strategy. It's a logical way to build wealth and create additional parts of your life that make sense for the way you want to live today. Please see it that way. Don't see it as a way to just escape. Let me tell you a story about someone as we finish up today. This man's name is Glenn. Some of you know him. He writes prepper fiction. He's the author of 299 Days. If you've read his book series, there's a story in there about his cabin and how he acquired it. And, when the shit hits the fan, everybody goes to the cabin and sets things up. The cabin's real. The reluctant wife is real in that story. She really didn't want nothing to do with any of this stuff. They were well-to-do yuppies. But you know what? Well-to-do yuppies have lake cabins. So she was okay with the concept of it's just a vacation home. So making this work for your family is often being willing to take a different view of how we describe it. And if we do that, and we keep in mind that we're also trying to build and preserve wealth with real estate at the same time, give our family a much better life here and now today, and obey my first rule: everything we do should make your life better even if nothing goes wrong. Then a bug out location, a remote property, a second home, a vacation home, it doesn't matter what you call it. It fits perfectly with that type of a lifestyle.